The dropship pierced the violet clouds over Bastion Forge Academy, the most brutal military institution in the Orion Spur. Cadets from 12 species pressed against the viewing ports, murmuring in their own dialects as a lone human stood at the center of the hold, unmoving despite the turbulence. Renna Vale kept her hands clasped behind her lower back, boots locked to the magnetic deck. Her uniform was standard-issue gray, but the sheath at her hip was not. Even covered, the weapon radiated a presence the others instinctively avoided. Humans were rare here. Too soft, the Kothar said. Too emotional, claimed the Vraxen. Too unpredictable, warned the instructors, though they never elaborated on what that meant. Renna didn't speak. She hadn't spoken since she boarded. The doors hissed open with a rush of frigid air, revealing the parade grounds below. Towering metallic spires rose like the teeth of some ancient war machine, each etched with the Academy's motto, "Only the broken endure." Cadets disembarked in orderly lines, except for the cluster that hesitated behind Renna, waiting for her to move first. She stepped forward, calm and precise. On the far side of the ground stood Instructor Velcroft, a hulking 8-limbed Jorthawk whose armor bore scars older than Earth's moon landings. He surveyed the new recruits until his 4 black eyes fixed on Renna. "Human," he rumbled, voice vibrating the air. "Step forward." Renna obeyed. Velcroft's secondary arms lifted a scanning device, sweeping it across her hip. The machine emitted a sharp warning tone and shut itself down. The instructor froze. That reaction alone made several cadets whisper. Nothing ever made a Jorthawk freeze. "What are you carrying?" Velcroft demanded, mandibles tightening. Renna released the latch on her sheath. Slowly, deliberately, she revealed the blade. Metal dark as vacuum, surface etched with coordinates, dates, and battles predating humanity's official first contact by nearly a century. Velcroft stepped back. The cadets went silent. Renna met his stare for the first time and said her first words since arriving. "My family didn't wait for permission to enter the galaxy, Instructor." Instructor Velcroft had seen weapons forged from neutron star alloy, plasma-threaded spears that could carve hulls, and ceremonial blades older than a species' written history, but nothing like the one Renna held. The blade was matte black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Thin lines of silver etched across its surface, each one a coordinate point or date. Some marks were shallow, some deep, each carved by a different hand over generations, and every one of them mapped to a battle. Not just battles, classified engagements. The nearest alien cadets leaned forward, antennae twitching, frills tightening. They recognized a few of the coordinates. They belonged to conflicts no one publicly admitted happened. Covert skirmishes between great powers long before the official treaties stabilized the region. "How did you acquire this?" Velcroft demanded, voice low but edged with something Renna recognized. "Fear." "It was passed down," she answered. 4 generations." Velcroft stared at her. "Humans have not been present in the galaxy for 4 generations." Renna didn't correct him. She didn't need to. Behind her, murmurs spread like ripples through water. A human family fought in the border wars. That's impossible. No species enters interstellar conflict without detection, unless someone hid them. Velcroft gestured sharply. "Cadet Vale, sheath your weapon. Now." Renna obeyed, sliding the blade back into its housing with a quiet click that somehow cut through the noise of the parade grounds. "Follow me," Velcroft ordered. He stomped toward the evaluation platform, the one used only for special cases, recruits flagged as extreme risks or extreme potential. The platform's metal surface shimmered with shifting runes, adjusting its difficulty level as they approached. The other cadets knew what it meant. Is she being tested already? No one is tested on day 1. Jorthawk protocol, this is serious. Velcroft turned to face the assembled group. This human cadet carries a weapon tied to conflicts no species has claimed. Until we verify her origins, her abilities, and her potential threat level, she will undergo a Level 3 combat assessment. Silence hit the field like a dropped meteor. Level 3 broke experienced soldiers. Level 3 sent half the alien recruits to the med bay in their first year. Renna stepped forward without hesitation. Velcroft narrowed his eyes. Human, do you understand what this test entails? Renna met his gaze evenly. My family prepared me for worse. The Level 3 assessment arena wasn't designed to test combat skill. It was designed to expose truth. Renna followed instructor Velcroft into the chamber as the heavy door sealed shut behind them with a hydraulic boom. The air inside was colder, drier, carrying the sterile scent of metal and ozone. The ceiling stretched upward into darkness, and the floor was a shifting pattern of plates that adjusted based on scenario protocols. Above them, hidden observation decks flickered to life. Alien instructors from half a dozen species watched from behind polarized glass. Velcroft activated the arena. The floor rumbled. You will face 3 phases, he announced. Survival, tactics, and opposition. You may use your blade, but nothing else. Renna nodded once. Begin. The floor erupted into motion. Panels snapped upward, forming jagged metallic terrain. Others dropped, leaving sudden pits and unstable platforms. The arena was a living thing, constantly rewriting itself to overwhelm the unprepared. Renna stepped lightly, letting the rhythm of shifting metal settle into something she could read. It wasn't predictable, that was the point, but it followed patterns. Patterns she recognized, just like the Veil trials back home. From the walls, drone projectors lit up, releasing soft blue holographic targets. They were harmless at first. Then the targets shifted to red and accelerated violently toward her. A Vraxan instructor muttered from the observation deck, "She'll panic now." All first years panic on Phase 1. Velcroft said nothing. Renna didn't panic. A target darted toward her head. She turned her shoulder just enough to let it pass. Another zipped toward her ribs. She stepped aside and let it slam into a rising metal plate instead. Her movements were minimal, efficient, and entirely without fear. The observers leaned forward. She's reading the arena. No human should adapt this fast. Impossible. Targets swarmed faster, attacking from all angles. Renna dropped into a slide, the floor shifting beneath her. She rolled her feet lightly and drew only 3 inches of her blade. That was enough. A red target shot tore her chest. She angled the blade so the tip barely touched it. A spark of distortion. The hologram collapsed, short-circuited. Velcroft's eyes widened. That blade wasn't just metal. It disrupted holotech on contact. Another red target dove at her back. Renna pivoted and flicked her wrist, just a whisper of movement, and the target shattered in midair. One by one, the targets overloaded and collapsed. Phase 1 ended in less than a minute. The arena dimmed. The floor stabilized. A mechanical voice announced, "Phase 1 complete. No errors detected." Velcroft looked down at Renna, his expression unreadable. "Human," he said quietly. "Who trained you?" Renna slowly sheathed her blade. "My family," she answered, "but not on Earth." The instructors exchanged glances. No one spoke. And then Phase 2 initiated. The arena lights snapped to blood red as Phase 2 initialized. The metal plates beneath Renna's boots trembled, sinking and rising with hydraulic precision until the floor transformed into a labyrinth. High walls, narrow corridors, and shifting passageways. A tactical maze. Alien instructors leaned closer to their observation screens. This phase didn't test speed or reflexes. It tested mind. Phase 2 measures strategic reasoning. Velcroft announced from above. You will be pursued by autonomous hunters. They adapt. They learn. If you repeat a tactic, they counter it. Renna waited silently. Your objective is simple. Reach the central platform without being detected for more than 3 seconds at a time. The hunters activated with a mechanical screech. 3 orbs lifted from the floor, their bodies swirling with red tracking lights. Each orb was equipped with thermal scanning, sound triangulation, vibration sensing, and predictive movement algorithms. Most cadets lasted 20 seconds. A few lasted 40. No one had ever reached the center. The hunters shot into the maze. Velcroft watched her closely. He expected panic, or at least tension. Instead, Renna closed her eyes for 2 seconds, nothing more, and inhaled slowly. She's mapping the airflow, he realized. Humans, with their limited senses, shouldn't be able to do that. The first hunter zipped around a corner, scanners flashing. Renna stepped left, her movement so soft that no vibration registered. She slipped into a shadowed alcove just as the orb passed by with a frustrated whine. The instructors murmured. She anticipated its sweep pattern. No species does that without implants. She's listening to the machine. Renna moved again, heel to toe, letting the maze shift around her. Each time the hunters closed in, she slipped between rising walls or ducked behind a plate just before it locked into place. The maze was random to most species, but Renna didn't treat it like a maze. She treated it like a signal. When the second hunter rounded on her, alarms flashing, Renna dropped low and let the walls rearrange above her head. The hunter scanner swept right over her hiding spot, confused by the sudden shift in heat signatures from the moving panels. Then she did something no one expected. She picked up a discarded metal fragment from the floor. Why is she carrying that? She can't use weapons in Phase 2. What's her plan? Renna pressed the fragment gently against the wall, just enough to vibrate the metal. A hum echoed down 3 corridors at once. The hunters froze. Their sound triangulation algorithms struggled to pinpoint the source. Their predictive model shattered. Renna used the confusion to sprint. Not recklessly, but with controlled bursts of speed, moving only when the maze drowned out her footsteps. She reached the central platform. A tone rang out through the arena. Phase 2 complete. Detection time, 1.7 seconds. The instructor stared. Even Velcroft said nothing for a long moment. Then he leaned forward and growled softly. That is not Human Academy training. Renna looked up at him, breathing steady. No, she said. It isn't. The arena lights shifted again. Phase 3 was coming. And this time, she wouldn't face drones or puzzles. She'd face something alive. The arena darkened so suddenly that even some of the instructors flinched. A low vibration rolled through the chamber like a growl, deep enough to rattle the observation decks. Phase 3 required no maze, no shifting plates, no holograms. Just a door. A massive circular vault door on the far wall unlocked with 8 heavy clanks. Steam hissed from the seams. Red warning sigils lit across the floor. Velcroft spoke through the intercom, his voice heavier than before. Phase 3 evaluates the cadet against a living opponent. Every instructor knew what that meant. This wasn't a spar. This wasn't training. This was survival. Renna stood alone on the metal platform as the vault door slowly rolled open, revealing a figure inside. Hunched, breathing steadily, chains retracting into the ceiling. A Dravik Brute, not a cadet, not an instructor, a condemned combatant used only for the Academy's most extreme assessments. A creature bred for war, 8 feet tall, muscles like braided cables, skin plated with natural armor. Even its exhale sounded violent. The alien cadets, watching from above, recoiled. You can't send a human against that. She'll be crushed. No species without exoskeletons survives Phase 3. Velcroft didn't respond. His eyes were fixed entirely on Renna. The Dravik stepped forward, the floor denting beneath its weight. Glowing restraints unclamped from its wrists, freeing claws long enough to carve through bulkheads. It swung its head, scanning the arena, confused at first, then focused when it saw her. A human. It snorted, amused. Renna unlatched her sheath, but didn't draw the blade yet. She lowered into a stance, not wide, not aggressive, simple, balanced, ready. Velcroft recognized it instantly. The stance wasn't human military, nor any known Academy discipline. Shadow doctrine, he thought, but rumor only. Forbidden. Lost. The Dravik roared and charged. Metal plates buckled. Dust lifted in a shockwave. The creature moved faster than anything its size should. Renna didn't move. She waited. At the last possible instant, a fraction before impact, she stepped inside the brute's reach. Not away. Not back. Inside. Its claws tore through empty air. Its momentum carried it past her, thrown off balance by a margin of inches, but enough. The instructors leaned forward in disbelief. Renna placed 2 fingers on the Dravik's forearm, redirecting the massive limb with a technique that looked almost weightless. The brute stumbled, confused rage rising as it slammed into a support pillar hard enough to crack it. Velcroft whispered under his breath. She's not fighting it, she's dismantling it. The Dravik turned, furious, and charged again. Faster, wild now. Renna exhaled once. Then she drew her blade. Just a flash of black metal, a whisper of movement. No flourish, no aggression, only precision. She struck a single point on the Dravik's armor plating. A spark, a crack. The brute roared, stumbling backward as the point she touched sent a vibration through its entire frame, like she had cut the air rather than the flesh. The instructors looked at each other. That technique, that weapon, no human should know this. Renna didn't pursue. She didn't need to. The Dravik lunged a final time, desperate, and Renna stepped forward, slid beneath its guard, and tapped the flat of her blade gently against the underside of its jaw. The creature froze. If she had used the edge, it would be dead. The arena announced. Opposition disabled. Phase 3 complete. The lights returned to full brightness. Renna Vale stood alone, blade lowered, breathing calm. Above, Instructor Velcroft removed his mask, something no Jorthawk did lightly, and whispered, "Human, what are you?" Silence gripped the arena. Not the tense silence of anticipation. The stunned, disbelieving stillness that followed an event which simply should not have been possible. The Dravik Brute lay unconscious, its armored chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. A bruise, barely forming, marked the place where Renna had touched it with the flat of her blade. Any other cadet strike would have either bounced harmlessly off or enraged it further. Renna's had disabled it, not through strength, not through force, through knowledge. Renna sheathed her blade without looking toward the observation deck. She didn't need to. She could feel the instructor's stares. A mix of awe, fear, and calculation. Velcroft descended from the viewing platform, each step making the metal stairs groan beneath his weight. The other instructors followed behind him, their robes and armor whispering against the cool air. A dozen alien species, each one a veteran of wars that spanned systems, surrounded the young human cadet. No one spoke at first. She passed the Level 3 assessment with efficiency. No creature her size should be able to redirect a Dravik charge without powered armor. "It's not the physical ability that concerns me," muttered another, a Scale Vicar officer whose species prized brute strength. "It's the blade. That thing disrupts holotech and impacts armored biostructures. Humans didn't forge weapons like that." Velcroft's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Renna stood at ease, hand behind her lower back, posture perfect. She didn't fidget. She didn't shift her weight. She didn't even seem winded. That unsettled them most of all. Finally, Velcroft addressed her directly. "Cadet Vale," he said, "your performance in all 3 phases violates our predictions by an extraordinary margin." Renna didn't respond. "Where did you learn these techniques?" "They match no human doctrine in our database." Before she could answer, Instructor Jordan, a towering cell whose species was notoriously blunt, stepped forward. "Human," he rumbled, "are you a product of some hidden Terran project? Gene forged? Experimentally trained? Modified?" Renna turned her gaze toward him, but didn't speak. The silence stretched, and then Velcroft did something unexpected. He deactivated the arena's recording systems with a swipe of his wristband. The other instructors reacted with surprise. "Velcroft, protocol forbids shutting down recorders," Tyra began. "This is not a protocol moment," Velcroft growled. "This is a revelation moment." He faced Renna directly. "You said your family prepared you for worse. Worse than the Dravik. Worse than Phase 3. Worse than this academy." His voice lowered. "What exactly has your family endured?" Renna inhaled slowly. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but carried a weight the instructors weren't prepared for. My family has served in galactic conflicts for 83 years, she said. Before Earth knew the stars existed, before humans were officially discovered, and long before your government started pretending the border skirmishes were accidents. Murmurs erupted. One instructor swore under their breath. Tyra froze. That's impossible. Humans were planet-locked until 60 years ago. They had no FTL, no jump drives. Renna's expression didn't change. We didn't arrive with ships, she said softly. We arrived with something better. Velcroth's breath hitched. And what is that? Renna looked him directly in all four eyes. Orders. For the first time in decades, the instructors felt fear. Not because of the girl standing before them, but because of the realization forming behind her calm blue eyes. Humans didn't stumble into the galaxy. Humans had been here all along, operating in the dark. The instructors exchanged shaken glances, the kind reserved for catastrophic battlefield intel or classified reports that should have stayed buried. Renna's words weren't just bold. They were historically impossible. The Galactic Accord had documentation of humanity's first contact, the diplomatic signatures, the footage of Earth's first FTL demonstration. None of it left room for covert human involvement in extragalactic warfare. And yet, none of the instructors doubted her. Velcroth stepped closer, his heavy jointed limbs making the arena floor creak. Cadet Vale, he said slowly, to imply your people were deployed in our conflicts long before official contact. That would require access to pre-warp channels, transport by unknown species, and authorization from a government that didn't even understand interstellar politics. Renna held his gaze. Correct. Then explain, Tyra insisted, crystalline skin flickering with stress fractures. How did your ancestors leave Earth at all? Renna rested her hand lightly on the hilt of her blade, not in threat, but in memory. They were taken. A hush flattened the room. Taken, repeated Jordan, voice darkening. By whom? Slavers? Unknown factions? Rogue mercenary houses? Renna nodded once. A private military conglomerate. One that existed outside your political structure, outside all of them. They called themselves the Hellion Directorate. Velcroth's eyes widened. That name is a myth. It's not, Renna said. They abducted humans for one reason. We adapt faster than any species they'd ever encountered. They trained us, weaponized us, sent us into conflicts they didn't want traced back to them. And what became of this directorate? Tyra whispered. Renna's jaw tightened. We destroyed them. The instructors stared at her as if she had just rewritten a chapter of galactic history with 6 words. Jordan crossed his arms, massive muscles shifting under scaled armor. If humans truly dismantled a multi-galactic Black Ops organization, why not reveal this to the Accord? Renna blinked once, slowly, because we weren't supposed to exist. That hit harder than any blade strike. Velcroth frowned, meaning Renna lifted her chin, and for the first time, there was a crack in her calm. Not fear, but the weight of secrets carried for generations. We were ghosts, disposable assets. The Directorate wiped our records from every system they infiltrated. When the last of them fell, only a few dozen of US were left. Those who survived swore an oath. Jordan leaned in. What oath? Renna answered without hesitation. To protect humanity from the galaxy, and the galaxy from humanity. None of the instructors reacted immediately. They couldn't. The implications were too vast, too destabilizing. If what she said was true, then humans were not naive newcomers to the stars. They were a force forged in the shadows of wars that never made the historical record. Velcroth exhaled slowly. In your blade, Renna glanced down at it. A record of the operations my family survived. Every mark is a battlefield the Directorate was never able to erase. Tyra stepped closer, eyes shimmering with both fear and fascination. Then why come to this academy at all? Why reveal yourself now? Renna's answer was immediate. Because something is coming back, she said. Something the Directorate tried to bury, and we won't be enough this time. A chill spread through the group. Velcroth felt the air shift, the unmistakable gravity of a warning. What is coming back, Cadet Vale? Renna slowly unsheathed her blade, its etchings catching the arena lights, projecting faint holographic echoes of old war zones. An enemy older than your empires, she said quietly, and one that remembers humanity. Silence consumed the chamber. Not the tense quiet of a failed test or disciplinary meeting, but the heavy, suffocating silence of a battlefield right before the first artillery strike. Every instructor stared at Renna's blade as its holographic war echoes shimmered across the floor in fractured light. Velcroth stepped forward carefully, as though approaching a volatile device. Cadet Vale named the threat. Renna kept her blade angled downward, but her eyes hardened. We call them the Virex Null. Impossible. The Virex were eradicated before our star lanes even opened. Officially, Renna agreed. But the Directorate learned the truth. A splinter faction survived. They evolved. They adapted. And they developed what the Accord classified as non-causal warfare. Jordan Skoet. Temporal weapons. That's banned in every star system. That didn't stop them, Renna replied. It only made them more creative. Velcroth's tendrils tightened. Explain. Renna inhaled once. A slow, grounding breath her ancestors probably took on 100 unrecorded battlefields. They don't attack your ships, she said. They attack your history. They alter small events. Recruiting choices. Patrol routes. Key births. Key deaths. Not enough to break reality. Just enough to weaken empires before the war begins. A wave of horror rippled through the instructors. That would mean, Tyar A whispered, any species could be compromised without ever realizing it. Renna nodded. Exactly. My family's unit was assigned to track their manipulation patterns. But the Directorate kept that information buried so deeply we had to carve every discovery into metal just to prevent it from being erased. She lifted her blade slightly, letting its symbols catch the dim arena lights. These aren't battle honors. They're timestamps, proof of interference. Velcroth stared at her in disbelief. And you believe the Virex Null have returned? I don't believe, Renna corrected. I know. A murmur rippled across the observers above. Jordan narrowed his gaze. What evidence? Renna pressed her thumb against a tiny ridge on her blade's grip. The etchings lit brighter, aligning into a constellation-like pattern. This signature appeared last week, she said. It matches the Null's causality fracturing from 58 years ago down to the microdistortion. Someone is destabilizing the Accord's border histories. Tyar staggered back a step, glass-like limbs trembling. If the Virex Null return in force, every major species would be unprepared. They could unmake our fleets before they launch. Renna's voice stayed level, calm. Far too calm for the magnitude of her claim. That's why I'm here, she said. Not to join your academy. To warn it. Velcroth felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not fear, but the cold recognition of a threat so vast it changed the purpose of every surviving soldier. You believe this academy is a target? Renna sheathed her blade fully. No, she said. I believe this academy is a flaw in the timeline. One the Virex Null will want to correct. The instructors froze. Velcroth swallowed. And what does that mean for us? Renna met each of their eyes, one by one, her voice steady as steel. It means the war has already started, she said. You just haven't noticed the changes yet. The arena doors opened behind her, a hiss of steam cutting through the thick tension. Renna stepped out, boots silent on the polished metal. The cadets had been dismissed for the day, but the instructors lingered, clustering near the observation deck like wary predators circling a new apex hunter. Velcroth's 4 eyes burned into her back as she approached. Cadet Vale, he rumbled, voice low, you've proven yourself beyond any evaluation we've ever conducted. Yet your warning. It is extraordinary, entirely uncorroborated. Renna didn't flinch. She laid her blade on the floor, the etchings catching the light like fractured starlight. Corroboration requires observation. Observation requires survival. The Virex Null are ghosts, moving through history, leaving no tangible trail until they strike. Tyare stepped forward, crystalline plates quivering. Then how do we prepare? How do we defend against something that can erase your actions before anyone notices? Renna lifted the blade again. First, we recognize the signature. Patterns exist, even in chaos. Their interventions leave micro-signatures, minor distortions, subtle anachronisms. We detect those, we can anticipate their moves. Velcroth's mandibles clicked, a sound like metal scraping over bone. And you intend to train us? Our cadets? Our strategists? No, Renna replied. Not to fight them, to survive them. Every tactic you know will fail. Every system you trust could be compromised. Survival depends on adaptation, deception, and secrecy. We need a new doctrine. Jordan's scaled arms flexed in disbelief. A doctrine designed for humans? We have centuries of combat experience. We are veterans of wars that span star systems. Renna's calm blue eyes met his. And you have yet to fight a war that rewrites itself while you sleep. I faced it. My family faced it. And we survived by becoming invisible weapons, shadows within shadows. You must become the same. Velcroth exhaled slowly. Then it falls to me to implement this shadow doctrine across the Academy. Not just the Academy, Renna said, sheathing her blade. The Accord, your fleets, your intelligence networks. Every command node, every historian, every tactician. If we fail to adapt, the Null won't just strike. They'll erase us before anyone realizes a war ever existed. A silence fell over the chamber, heavy with the gravity of her words. Tyrae's crystalline skin flickered faintly. And what of your people? Your families? You're the last of your kind who understands this threat firsthand. Renna's gaze drifted briefly toward the arena floor, where faint holographic echoes of battle still shimmered. We survive in the shadows to protect what remained of humanity. Now we survive to protect the galaxy. Velcroth's eyes narrowed, calculating. And the Virex Null? They are patient, she said softly. They remember everything. They wait. But now they have been noticed. The instructors exchanged glances. Recognition, fear, awe, and above all, urgency. The Academy, built to forge the galaxy's greatest soldiers, had just been introduced to an enemy that no drills, no simulations could prepare them for. Renna turned toward the exit, her boots echoing in the silent chamber. Prepare your students. Prepare your fleets. And trust no record you cannot verify yourself. Velcroth followed her gaze, letting her words sink in. Human, do you even realize what you've done? Yes, Renna replied, voice steady as the hum of a ship's engine. I just made history in order to save it. The corridors of Bastion Forge were unusually silent that evening. Cadets had retreated to their quarters. Instructors had retreated to debate quietly behind closed doors. But Renna walked alone, her boots whispering over the polished metal floors. The weight of the Level 3 assessment still clung to her shoulders, though she moved with the same calm precision that had dismantled drones, labyrinths, and the Dravik Brute. Velcroth caught up to her near the main hangar, his 8 limbs folded in an uncharacteristically contemplative posture. Cadet Vale, he said, voice low, you've exposed not just a threat, but a flaw in every system we rely upon. Our intelligence, our histories, they are inadequate against the Null. Renna didn't look at him. She gazed toward the city beyond the spires, violet clouds swirling overhead. Inadequate until we change how we perceive the past and anticipate the future. The Null exploit the smallest errors. They are surgical in their manipulation, and they will not wait for us to be ready. Velcroth's mandibles clicked, a sign of measured thought. Then what is to be done? You are a single cadet. No human contingents exist outside of shadows. The Academy cannot stand alone. I know, she said softly, but I'm not alone. I never have been. Her words carried a weight he couldn't quantify. The mention of shadows, of history rewritten, made him uneasy. Explain, he urged. Renna reached into the sheath at her hip, withdrawing her blade just long enough for the light to catch its etchings. Each mark shimmered faintly, a constellation of battlefields that no one in the galaxy officially acknowledged. This blade is not only a weapon, it's a ledger, a map of interference, a record of operations the Null attempted to erase. My family, those who survived the Directorate, left signals for the future, for anyone who would notice. Velcroft studied the marks, realizing they were more than coordinates. They were timestamps, encoded in subtle variances in depth and spacing, a language of survival. You intend to use this to track the Null? Yes, Renna said. But first, we need a base of observation. A unit of cadets, instructors, specialists who can think outside conventional warfare. They must learn to see patterns where others see randomness, to anticipate erasure before it occurs. Tyra appeared beside them, her crystalline plates reflecting violet light. You speak as if history itself can be predicted. We've never encountered an enemy like that, one who manipulates time as easily as infantry. Renna nodded once. Time is a battlefield. The Null fight it better than any of us. But they make mistakes, tiny ones. Missed signals, repeated anomalies. That's what we will exploit. That's how we survive. Velcroft's voice dropped. And if we fail? Renna's calm eyes met his. Then history forgets us before we even knew we existed. The air shifted. Even the Academy, built for the indomitable, seemed smaller, more fragile under the weight of what she revealed. The instructors felt it, a prelude to a war they had never imagined, one that would stretch across space and time, where victory required cunning sharper than any blade. Renna sheathed her weapon. We start tomorrow. We gather information, verify records, train minds. Not for medals, not for glory, for survival. The Null have waited long enough. It's time we waited for them. Velcroft's 4 eyes narrowed, finally meeting her gaze with the respect born of witnessing something beyond comprehension. Then humanity's shadows will teach the galaxy to see differently, and you will lead them. Renna's lips curved faintly. I will guide them, but the galaxy must learn to survive itself. And that is a lesson none of you are ready to forget. The three of them stood in silence as the violet cloud churned above Bastion Forge, carrying with them the unspoken knowledge that the war had already begun, and this time, no species would be prepared. Dawn over Bastion Forge was fractured violet and steel, the Academy spires slicing through mist like sharpened blades. Cadets gathered in their usual formations, unaware that their routines had already been rewritten. Renna moved among them silently, her presence an anomaly they felt but did not understand. Whispers followed her like a shadow, the human, the ghost, the one they say dismantled the brute. Velcroft approached her as the cadets saluted in unison. They notice your reputation before they see you. Discipline is breaking already. Renna's gaze swept over the parade ground. Good. They should. Respect born from fear is stronger than obedience. They need to understand what's coming, even if they don't yet understand the enemy. Tyra stepped beside them, carrying a hollow pad of maps and charts. Cadet Vale, we've cross-referenced anomalies in patrol logs and supply deliveries. Minor shifts, subtle deviations across decades. We found a dozen micro-signatures of null activity. Renna examined the data. Each anomaly was tiny, almost meaningless to untrained eyes. A misaligned star chart, an altered recruitment record, a patrol that left a sector slightly off schedule. Yet together, they formed a pattern, one the Null could not entirely conceal. Correct, she said. They are probing, testing timelines. Each disruption is a thread. Pull one, and you see the fabric of what they intend. Pull them all, and you see the map of their strategy. Velcroft frowned, and your family followed these threads for decades. They survived because they anticipated each move. Renna nodded. They didn't just anticipate, they manipulated as well. A single error or hesitation could erase entire operations. That's why the Directorate was both weapon and shield. We operated in the gaps, exploiting the spaces where the Null couldn't reach without exposure. Tyra's crystalline skin pulsed with light. Then our academy, our fleets, Everything we trust is vulnerable. Yes, Renna said simply. And you have no time to fortify the past, only the present. We prepare minds. We train instinct. We detect patterns. That is how you survive a war that rewrites itself. A low hum vibrated through the academy as drones activated overhead, scanning the cadets. A routine exercise turned symbolic in Renna's eyes. She stepped forward onto the field, drawing her blade just long enough to catch the light. The holographic etchings glimmered faintly, projecting constellations of battles, anomalies, and signatures in the air, a visual ledger of the Null's influence. Cadets froze. Instructors leaned forward. Even Velcroth's mandibles clicked in fascination. This is not a weapon for fighting, Renna said quietly, her voice carrying across the field. It is a record, a warning. Each mark is a history they tried to erase, a life saved from oblivion. And each mark is proof that even the Null can be anticipated. She lifted her gaze, meeting Velcroth's four eyes. We begin with observation, with strategy, with learning to see the unseen. Phase 1 is understanding. Phase 2 is adaptation. And Phase 3 is survival. The wind shifted over the spires, carrying an unspoken truth. The Null were watching. They always had been, but now someone had noticed. Velcroth exhaled, a deep vibration that seemed to shake the ground itself. Then let it begin, he said. Let the shadows teach the galaxy to see. Renna sheathed her blade. Not just see, to survive. And somewhere beyond the academy, in the black stretches of unclaimed space, the Null stirred. Subtle, silent, patient, unaware that a human had already begun to unravel their plans. Night fell over Bastion Forge, violet clouds darkening to deep indigo, stars piercing the gloom like pinpricks of light. The academy, built for discipline and order, seemed almost fragile under the vast emptiness beyond the spires. Renna walked alone along the upper observation decks, her blade sheathed, her mind mapping every possibility. Velcroth joined her silently, his massive form casting a shadow across the walkway. Reports from the outer sectors, he rumbled, are troubling. Ships have vanished. Patrols rerouted themselves inexplicably. And the historical logs? Altered. Small, almost imperceptible. But undeniable. Renna nodded, her calm gaze fixed on the horizon. The Null are testing, probing our systems to see how we respond. They are patient, centuries patient. But patience has limits when the prey becomes aware. Tyra appeared behind them, her crystalline plates faintly glowing. We've initiated observation protocols across all fleets. We've started cross-checking historical data against independent records. But the Null's movements are subtle. Microtemporal distortions. Almost impossible to detect without your methodology. Renna exhaled slowly. Then you start small. Observe anomalies. Document everything, even what seems meaningless. Patterns emerge from repetition, not from single events. Teach them to your cadets. Every mind here must learn to see the cracks before the Null exploit them. Velcroth's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. In the first confrontation, how do we engage an enemy that doesn't appear until after the battle is already lost? She lifted her blade slowly, letting the etchings catch the dim light. Faint holographic projections shimmered from the marks, mapping out micro-anomalies in fleet routes and historical records. You don't fight them like conventional enemies. You fight the consequences of what they would do. You set traps in the timeline, mislead them, misdirect them. And when they act, you respond before the ripple reaches your fleets. Anticipation is your weapon. Knowledge is your armor. And if we fail, Renna's eyes hardened. If we fail, history erases you, and no one will ever know you existed. A faint tremor shook the observation deck, a subtle vibration, almost imperceptible. Renna's gaze sharpened. She crouched slightly, reading the disturbance like a signal. The Null were already close, testing the Academy's defenses. A single misstep, and their influence could begin rewriting events even as they stood in the present. Velcroft placed a massive hand on the railing, his black eyes narrowing. "Then we trust you to lead this effort?" Renna sheathed her blade and stepped forward, the weight of centuries of human shadow warfare behind her. "We don't just survive this threat," she said. "We force it to reveal itself. The Null will learn what humans already knew. We exist, even in the dark, and we are not afraid." The violet clouds roiled violently above Bastion Forge, as though the galaxy itself exhaled in anticipation. Somewhere in the void, the Null observed, patient and hidden, unaware that their first moves had already been anticipated. Renna turned to Velcroft and Tyra, her voice calm and unshakable. "Tomorrow, we begin countermeasures. Tonight, we watch, we learn, and we prepare. The war has already started, and we will not lose." The stars beyond the academy twinkled faintly, but for the first time, they seemed to shimmer with warning, a reminder that even the smallest human, wielding knowledge and shadow, could bend the fate of the galaxy. Renna Vale's name would echo through the corridors of history, not as a recruit, not as a cadet, but as the human who taught the galaxy to survive the war it didn't yet know had begun.